Evil Genius Games and Netflix have settled their Rebel Moon tabletop role-playing game lawsuit. But considering how well the Rebel Moon franchise is doing right now, maybe that's not a bad thing. It's What's Up, Nerds? It's your boy broadcasting live from the Rebel Moon, the OGGM, coming to you at 9:26 in the morning on this rainy 25th day of January 2024. A couple weeks ago, we found out that apparently Evil Genius Games were going to do a role-playing game based upon the one episode of the Rebel Moon franchise that we've seen so far. And Netflix said, nope, yoink, and they got into a lawsuit. Well, that lawsuit was resolved, and now it looks like any plans to make a role-playing game based upon the expansive Rebel Moon franchise are temporarily canceled, at least in regards to Evil Genius Games doing it. In a statement that was released by D. Todd Scott, the parties are pleased that they were able to amicably resolve the dispute. Netflix thanks Evil Genius for their hard work and professionalism. We will not be releasing a Rebel Moon game, but stay tuned for more amazing cinematic adventures and upcoming sci-fi projects. And thank you again for your amazing support. Cinematic adventures, of course, they're referring to their Everyday Heroes role-playing game and all the licenses they were able to get for Everyday Heroes, including Rambo and Pacific Rim and Skull Island and stuff like that. If you already paid for the Rebel Moon role-playing game, they will contact you within the next 7 to 10 days to process the refund. Now, when Rebel Moon was announced, because Zack Snyder didn't get to make a Star Wars movie, there were plans for a sequel to the one that's already been up, plus a trilogy, plus spin-offs, books, comic books. Zack has a lot of invested in this franchise. Now, the first one went live on Netflix in December and received a mixed reaction, less than as stellar as perhaps Zack Snyder wanted, but that hasn't dissuaded him from releasing the second part coming out in April of this year. Generally, it was revealed that, oh yeah, it's pretty. And the world building, though seeming extremely familiar, was cool. And the music was nice. And oh my God, was it visually stunning. On the other hand, the characters seemed tripe and stereotypical and all individuals we'd seen before. The plot line made no sense. It felt literally lifted from other projects. And again, we sat through a 2-hour movie for a 5-minute battle scene at the very end where nothing was really resolved. And if it felt really familiar to another Star Wars movie, well, again, that was because Zack Snyder wanted to make a Star Wars movie and couldn't. Also, it has heavy influences from Dune, and surprising to a lot of people, heavy influences from Warhammer 40K. In fact, several people have said, is this an unofficial Warhammer 40K game movie? Because a lot of the stuff sounds really familiar, and a lot of the looks like they were directly taken for 40K and Starship Troopers. So yeah, very pretty, not very original. Mr. Snyder has lots of plans for it, but based upon how it's doing so far, maybe he should rethink those plans. And was it a little early to think about a tabletop role-playing game set in that universe until maybe we had more product? I mean, unless you're trying to follow the timeline of the Expanse role-playing game and how convoluted and wibbly-wobbly that is. But yeah, maybe a little early. So maybe Evil Genius Games didn't, came out lucky with not getting the role-playing game, because I don't know if there was an audience for a role-playing game set in the Rebel Moon universe, since we know so little about it. And it just seems really, 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 really familiar. But it was pretty and visually stunning. And some of the effects were amazing. Some of the other effects were not that amazing. It seemed like, wait, I've seen this before. There was a lot of, wait, I've seen this before. And a lot of, wow, this seems really familiar. And wow, really? She's the daughter of the bad guy? What a shock. And apparently, yeah, and there's openings for other stories. There's a character that's introduced at the beginning that we never see again. There's another character that's introduced at the beginning that we don't see to the end. There's definitely room for spin-offs and side adventures and prequels and sequels. And Zach apparently has a bunch of stuff in the vault for what he wants to do with this. But I guess a role-playing game wasn't one of them. And I don't know, Zach, maybe we should wait till after April to see what the reviews and ratings for the sequel is before we start planning a Deca trilogy or whatever you call them, which is a trilogy within a trilogy within a trilogy. Do you care? Was there anybody out there within the sound of my voice who were like, oh my God, this is the best TV show ever, and I cannot wait for the role-playing game? Raise your hand. Raise your hand for the person who was like, yes, I cannot wait for this. I so want to role play in this universe, and no other role-playing game will allow me to do it. Come on. Who here loved the show so much and can't wait for the sequel and the Deca trilogy and the spin-offs? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Do you sense my sarcasm? I'm going to say, yeah. I mean, you know, you could have at least let them make a source book for Rebel Moon for Everyday Heroes, but maybe they came out ahead because, again, I don't know what kind of a future this franchise has, if any future. A year from now, are we going to be like, wow, I can't wait for the next episode of Rebel Moon? Or are we going to be more like, hey, remember that thing that came out a year ago? And now he's releasing his uncut black and white version. Does anybody want to watch it? I don't know. Maybe the uncut black and white version makes more sense. Or you could just subscribe to Apple TV and watch Foundation, which is 1,000 times better.